Hey, good afternoon now. It's 4:07 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Harmeet Dhillon is here. We'll talk to her about how awful Kamala Harris is. And Rob Law joins us at the top of the next hour. And speaking of Kamala, Kamala's the border czar, right? Right? Not according to the media today. They've erased that little piece of history. It just so happens to be one of her biggest liabilities, so it's not allowed to have happened. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let's pick up with Peter Doocy in Karinge, and then we'll get to the left burning the American flag yet again in the nation's capital. The breaking news today.
President to Vice President to President Obama for 8, and now a first term as president himself. These are not easy decisions to make. They're just not. And so the fact that he was able to make that decision in a selfless way, that's admirable.
One of the decisions he made.
Positively North Korean, as she says. Joe Biden dropped out of this race because he's brilliant.
President Biden wants Vice President Harris to be the standard bearer of the party now. Does she still want to get rid of ICE?
You have seen what this administration has been able to do in the past 3.5 years. And they did that with the vice president as a partner in that. And
what?
Republicans got in the way. The president went around Republicans and was able to get thousands of personnel at the border. And now we are seeing a 50% drop at the border. And that's because of what this president has done.
As a partner, though, she's been in charge of root causes of migration for years. She has never spoken to the Border Patrol Chief, Jason Owens, or the Border Patrol Chief before him, Raul Ortiz. What should that tell us about her leadership style?
She was supposed to be doing root causes, dealing with diplomacy. 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 That's what her job was
supposed to be. Say it again. Say diplomacy.
Diplomatic.
She tried.
That's the job.
Diplomatic, that's the job.
I understand that you're asking these questions, but we should also look at congressional Republicans who got in the way, literally got in the way of everything that this president was trying to do to deal with the border. They got in the way. They would say one thing and then they would change their mind. They would say, we want Border Patrol, we want, we want a deal on what's happening at the border.
I don't remember that
And then
quote.
they would walk away from it. And they did it because of what the former president said. You guys reported that. That's not coming from me. Some of your colleagues reported that the former president said, let's not move forward with this proposal because it's going to help Joe Biden.
That's a conspiracy theory.
I mean, that's also the reality. You got to talk about both sides here. Good.
Great.
This is.
I get that you're not going to give us. I get that you might have.
Okay. Yeah. No, go ahead, Peter.
One more. I get that you don't probably want to give.
It's good to see you too, James.
A specific name, but were there any names?
I think James Rosen wanted a question, didn't get it.
Forward that surprised you of Democratic officials in the last week who stabbed President Biden in the back?
I don't have anything else to say. Go ahead, April.
That went well, didn't it go? That went really well. Oh, all right. Meanwhile, we do have American flag burning going on in front of Union Station today, one of the beautiful buildings in the city that keeps on getting wrecked by the city and the lefties that run it specifically. And American flags are being burned because, I guess, because Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, addressed Congress today. So the left is out in force burning American flags and supporting Hamas. For more on this, I want to bring in a great reporter, Richie McGinniss, who constantly seems to be in the middle of all of this chaos, tracking all of it. Richie, good to have you with us on the phone, sir.
Thanks for having me, Vince.
Richie, what happened? What happened today in front of Union Station?
Well, I was sitting there, just writing, doing my work. I live on Capitol Hill, and I saw the protest. Saw them starting to congregate around Union Station and went down there. And things escalated pretty quickly as the size of the crowd went from a couple hundred to a couple thousand. And then I noticed some burning going on, some smoke. Went over there, and I was getting a low angle of the flag burning. And this dude who told me he was a lawyer, he wants to remain anonymous for obvious reasons. He told me he just didn't want to see the flag burn, and he went in there and grabbed it. And people were shouting, "Get him, get him!" And he got away. I mean, that guy's got legs, I'll tell you that.
He ran in there and grabbed a fully engulfed in flames American flag, dragged it out of the crowd, and sprinted, based on the video that you've posted today to X. I noticed right next to the American flag, it looked like some sort of pile of, I don't know what, was on fire, too. Do you know what that was?
Yeah, that was right before I got over there. It was an effigy of Netanyahu.
Oh, so they burned an effigy of a visiting prime minister, and they they were burning the American flag today.
And, well, there was a confrontation right before that where I don't know if that flag, it looked like a smaller flag, but the large flag in front of Union Station, the protesters / rioters tried to pull it down. Park Police came over, encircled the flag, so they saved that one. And I think it looked to me like the one that was burning on the ground was a smaller flag that somebody else had done there.
What does the police presence look like there? You mentioned the cops protecting at least one flag, but what are the cops doing as people wave Palestinian flags and destroy things?
Well, it's one of the biggest police presences I've ever seen in D.C. As a matter of fact, the NYPD is actually helping to secure the perimeter around the Capitol, which I hadn't seen before. And usually the police are following the front and the back of the protest, but when you have 2,000 people, it's pretty hard to corral and make sure that, stuff like the pulling down of a flag off the flagpole doesn't happen. So they got in there pretty quick as they started to pull it down.
I'm also looking at videos on your feed of a couple of chicks spray painting statues in the ground, writing Gaza all over everything. They attacked, you said that they attacked you because you asked them questions?
Yeah, I just asked, why are you spray painting? And they asked, why are you here? I said, I'm doing my job. I'm exercising my free speech as an American to, stand on a public street and film what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was called, she started screaming Zionist, which, in the middle of a crowd of Palestinian protesters isn't the best thing to be called. But I just got out of there. I'm pretty good at getting, running away from these kinds of situations at this point.
Yeah, Richie, if you've been following Richie's career, you'll know he's been in the middle of some very hairy situations right here inside of our own borders, including quite infamously, right there in the vicinity of all of the events around Kyle Rittenhouse in Wisconsin. Richie, you've seen a lot, buddy, and you happen to be out there today. Somehow, once again, chaos found you. Richie, thanks, brother. Thank you for weighing in and telling us what you saw.
I wanted to retire, Vince, but they pulled me back in.
I know. They're always pulling you back in. Thanks, man. I appreciate
Thanks for having me.
That's Richie McGinniss out there at Union Station today as the left is raining chaos upon Union Station. As I mentioned, Benjamin Netanyahu did give an address to Congress today. Great speech, actually. And that's par for the course for Benjamin Netanyahu. He's a talented speaker. The left, it was interesting watching the Democrats in the crowd. There were at least two who were enthusiastic. John Fetterman and Kirsten Sinema were sitting in the very front row, and they would both pop up, and they just the most enthusiastic possible applause you could. I thought their arms were going to fall off. They were applauding so hard to everything Benjamin Netanyahu was saying. But meanwhile, Rashida Tlaib was sitting back there, and she was holding up a sign that said war criminal. It was a black sign. It said war criminal on it. She was attacking this visiting head of state the whole time he was speaking. And a bunch of Democrats refused to stand up at various portions of the speech. But like I said, I thought Netanyahu did a fantastic job. He laid out, he talked about, as you would if you were Israel's prime minister, he laid out what, of course, had happened on October 7th of last year to his country, the terror attack, the attacks on children, the beheadings, the rapes, the murders, the hostage-taking. He talked about the Israeli hostages who were pulled into Gaza. He talked about the American hostages who were pulled into Gaza. He talked about it more than the White House has ever discussed that subject. And he talked about the heroism of the IDF, the efforts to go in there and save hostages and the guys that they've lost, the people they've had blown apart. He brought some of those soldiers with him today who were standing there with prosthetic arms and limbs and holding up crutches, guys who have been fighting in this very active conflict in Gaza against Hamas, against the forces of Iran, which, by the way, the Biden administration has funded so much. Also today, Netanyahu, he praised the UNC frat bros, which was a great moment. He praised the UNC frat bros who protected the American flag from all of the pro-Hamas idiots.
So these protesters burn American flags even on the 4th of July. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters.
In fact, Netanyahu went on today and pointed out that we do know that Iran has been sowing so much of the discord that we're seeing across the country and attempting to fund a lot of this pro-Hamas sentiment. So Netanyahu pointed that out today, and that comes at an important time as you're seeing more of these idiots burn American flags in front of Union Station.
For all we know, Iran is funding the anti-Israel protests that are going on right now outside this building. Not that many, but they're there, and throughout the city. Well, I have a message for these protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hang gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots.
Yeah, a good speech. And it's a shame we've got to bring somebody in, a ringer from overseas, to say what's completely true about these morons who we keep seeing disrupt so many people's lives, cause so much destruction, burning American flags, attacking journalists for documenting it. Richie literally asked a girl, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she starts attacking him, directs the crowd to turn on him by asking her a question. If you were proud of what you were doing, you wouldn't call for backup. You would just tell him. You would tell him what you were doing. Straight to the camera.
Some of these protesters, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC. These protesters chant from the river to the sea, but many don't have a clue what river and what sea they're talking about. They not only get an F in geography, they get an F in history.
Yeah, they definitely do. They definitely, gays for Gaza, they may as well be holding up signs that say chickens for KFC. It is crazy. It is totally crazy. Also, did the Secret Service fail again this week in not protecting Netanyahu from these idiots? You see what happened at his hotel? I'll tell you about that in a moment. As the pro-Hamas people stormed the hotel that Netanyahu's delegation is staying in and wreaked all sorts of havoc. The Secret Service is supposed to be protecting this guy, I think. Some disgusting videos going around on X today of these lefty protesters storming the hotel where Benjamin Netanyahu's delegation has been staying. Thousands, New York Post, thousands of anti-Israel protesters flooded Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, dyeing the city's fountains blood red and even unleashing maggots and other creepy crawlers at a hotel where some of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's delegation stayed. A video to X posted by the Palestinian Youth Movement, they filmed their own crimes, showed moving critters scattered across a table flanked by Israeli and American flags. Quote, Palestine protesters, Palestine, that's how they wrote it, manufactured chaos at the Watergate Hotel last night so that Netanyahu, Israeli Mossad agents, and the Secret Service had no peace as they continue to terrorize our people, the organization claimed on X. The Watergate Hotel confirmed the unfortunate insect intrusion in a statement to the New York Post. Quote, our top priority is the safety and well-being of our guests and staff. We took the necessary steps to ensure the property has been sanitized and is now operating as normal. We're cooperating fully with authorities who are handling the situation. As this is an open case, we're unable to provide any further details at this time. Yeah, the videos show just a disgusting array of maggots and what look like worms and crickets just dumped all out at the tables at the Watergate. This is, you know, earlier Netanyahu described the battle between Israel and Hamas as, I believe he was referring to the difference between civilization and barbarism, you know, like civilized people versus barbarians, in other words. The people who dump maggots all over the tables at the Watergate, they're the barbarians. It's like the most obvious thing ever. Like, it's not civilized protest. It's just disgraceful barbarism. And here they are doing it again. You can see in the video, you can see, again, American flag, the Israeli flag in the background, because the Israeli delegation is visiting the United States of America, and the left is super upset about it, the pro-Hamas people. And that's going great. You know, on, what was it? It was CNN earlier this week. You know, as Kamala Harris refuses to consider anybody but a white man to be her running mate, one of the white people that she's considering is apparently the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro. And on CNN, they were wringing their hands this week because they said, well, one of the problems is he's Jewish, and that may not go over well with some people. Who are you talking about? Who are you referencing as you say that? Isn't Kamala Harris's husband Jewish, Doug Emhoff? What even is this analysis? I can't even begin to understand it, except for this, that the left, not too fond of Jewish people. They're dumping insects out on tables. What message do you think they're trying to send as they do that? As they dump out boxes full of maggots. The Secret Service is supposed to be protecting the Israeli delegation, by the way. That's their job when they're here. They claim there were no security threats. Everything's fine. I'm sorry, it's a little hard to believe you these days. Can't exactly put my finger on why. Harmeet Dhillon will be with us in just a moment. We'll talk Kamala Harris and her failed record throughout her political career. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's now 4:35, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up today, Rob Law will be with us from the America First Policy Institute. We're going to talk to him about the media's ongoing reinvention of Kamala Harris and their claim that it was never her job to tackle the border. The border? She's never heard of it. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, the media going crazy for Kamala. But what is Kamala's actual record? What has she done with her life? What has she done in all of her public service? Let's talk to someone who knows well. Harmeet Dhillon is here. She's the founder of the Dhillon Law Group, an attorney for President Trump and the Trump campaign as well. Harmeet, always good to have you with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So there's the press, of course, is in the midst of giving Kamala Harris a glow up right now. Oh, she's wonderful. She's just the best. She likes to dance and sing and all these things. But what is Kamala Harris's actual record in your view?
Well, I've lived here in San Francisco since before she was elected as district attorney. And, you know, it all started out good, sunshine and roses, because she was running against her boss, which is, by the way, a theme here, running against her boss, a terrible district attorney, as the tough on crime prosecutor. And so she made all these promises to voters. Most of the Republicans in the city actually voted for her because she was the more conservative candidate in the race. And her first big case was the case of Isaac Espinoza, a cop who was shot by gang bangers in our city. He was 29 years old, had a beautiful family. And Kamala Harris's first big act is to have a press conference with the chairman of the Police Officers Union and announce that she's not going to seek the death penalty in this absolutely heinous case. And so everyone was shocked by that, and it kind of went downhill from there. So over her time as DA, she presided over gross violations of due process involving 600 cases, plus being tossed out, dismissed actually after verdicts because of violations of her disclosure obligations. Her tenure as an attorney general is no better. It's been widely panned, including by liberals like Dean of Berkeley Law School, Erwin Chemerinsky, and The Atlantic, as really just juvenile and shocking arguments violating civil rights of prisoners and, disobeying court orders, ignoring pedophilia amongst priests, ignoring sex trafficking, human trafficking in our state. And so basically Kamala Harris, if you were to boil it down, is a naked opportunist who will say and do anything to get ahead and who's always looking for the next job. As soon as she gets the job, that's the next rung on her ladder. And do you really want someone like that as our president, who has a very poor record of accomplishment,
yes,
who has been boosted by the media, who has really, she lied in her press conference, her opening foray a couple of days ago, saying she's like the top cop and she's gone after murderers and this and that. Her record is very different than that.
seems to be kind of all over the place, too, in a reckless way when it comes to criminal justice. So in some sense, she's very weak on crime in all the ways that you talked about, including her support for the Minneapolis Bail Fund, which bailed out all sorts of awful people with her support. And then additionally, I recall that story that Tulsi Gabbard brought up on stage, that she prevented a court from even considering DNA evidence that would have exonerated a man on death row. What the hell is that? So she becomes aware that this man may be wrongfully on death row, and she prevents his getting a chance to have that heard in a fair trial?
Yeah, her argument of her office was, even if this person is innocent, he has waited too long to make that claim. And again, I'm a conservative, and we're, hard on crime, but first principles are the United States Constitution.
Yes.
And people are entitled to due process. Even criminals, even convicted criminals, are entitled to due process and equal protection. And this man didn't get that from the California justice system. And, even many conservative attorneys general, when faced with a set of facts, would say, we may have gotten this wrong. I don't want this death on my hands, and I need to reopen this case. That's the correct thing to do. And people have to understand that the job of a prosecutor is not to get convictions. It's to do justice. And that means sometimes you have to drop a case where you don't have the facts. And so her bloodthirsty desire to rack up wins on the board, no matter what the facts are, is truly disgusting. And it's incredible that the liberal media has just papered that over. I mean, I think there are quite a few progressives who are turning against her, not for that, because people have forgotten these are 20 years of malfeasance, but because of being too close to Israel. Shockingly enough, they think she's not hard enough on Israel. So she's all over the place on that today. As you know, she's boycotting the address of Benjamin Netanyahu in favor of some frivolous frolic and detour. So she tries to have it always, and that just demonstrates her complete lack of a core. There are no core values there.
One of the features of her times in Washington has been that nobody likes working for her, and that they have to work overtime in order to accommodate her inadequacy. She's not. She doesn't do the work. She doesn't actually read her briefing materials, and she shows up to meetings unprepared. And then when she fails in those meetings, she hurts the people who work for her for the outcome, which is typical of tyrannical bosses. That has been the way she is in Washington. Was she like this in California too, to your knowledge?
Yeah, there was definitely turnover. She's like, I've told the story of how from the time she was running for district attorney on up, she never entered a room without an entourage. There was always like one person holding her purse, holding her phone, holding her notes. She could never had the confidence, like so many politicians, to just walk into a room, sit down, own the room, have a real conversation with people. She always had to have props and people around her. And I think, that's led to quite a few people not liking to work for her because she's heavily reliant on staff and she doesn't treat them very well. So, and I mean, to be fair, some of the turnover in the White House, I've heard, has to do with, the president's team assigning her, not the best staff, and there being frustration with that. So she was set up in a way over there. Not that I'm feeling sorry for her, but I think there's going to be a problem. And so it is very impressive how unified the media and the left have been in completely screwing over all of their voters and installing this puppet as the top of their ticket. But I hope some people have the honesty and the patriotism to step forward and tell the facts about Kamala Harris, because they're not pretty. No,
they're not pretty at all. What do you think of this media effort? It was kind of interesting after President Trump obviously succeeded in that debate, and more importantly for this case, Joe Biden self-immolated on that stage. The press all turned in unison against him until they chased him out of the race. And now Kamala Harris comes in, and they're doing a big whitewashing effort on some of the biggest things that were in her portfolio as vice president, in particular the border, saying, the border really wasn't her thing. She was never the border czar. She had only a limited exposure to the border problem. What do you make of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, whitewashing, literally. They're actually going back and revising websites to erase facts. There's a website out there that ranked her as the most liberal senator in the United States Senate before she became the vice president. And that was erased from the internet earlier today. So, we need to quickly archive the stuff and not let them memory hole it. And, let's have it out. Let's hear about those accomplishments, not the rhetoric, not the canned teleprompter speech. Why don't you tell us, Kamala Harris, some of the criminals you put away personally? What are the cases you handled? What about the cop killer? What about the pedophile priests? What about the human traffickers? What about the people you locked up for low-level offenses so you could claim you had a hard-on-crime record? What about screwing over the actually innocent convicted people? These are huge problems for her and for the Democrats, and it's our job as conservatives to make sure they are known.
Harmeet Dhillon, one of Kamala Harris's problems is getting off teleprompter, very much in some ways like Joe Biden. When she is in candid moments, she's at her worst. She starts talking about Venn diagrams and school buses. Will we see her do that in this campaign, or do you expect that she's going to be only allowed to do very tightly controlled teleprompter-based events?
Yeah, I mean, given her word salad fiascos over the years, but you know what's funny, Vince, is, one of her dumbest phrases is the one about being unburdened by what has been. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a word salad snafu. That's actually somebody wrote that out and she's repeated it dozens of times. So her speech writers hate her or are really stupid. But yeah, if you look at how the Democrats ran the COVID campaign of Joe Biden, sleepy Joe Biden, right? They didn't let him, sort of flail around in uncontrolled circumstances, and she's not going to do it either. So, but if Democrat journalists, liberal journalists, want to do their jobs and want to do some actual journalism, they'll insist on one-on-ones with her and put her to the test. She is not capable of standing up to it. Her record is not one of accomplishment. It's one of advancement, color by numbers. It's getting ahead and looking for the next job and being assisted to that job by a compliant media and Democrat establishment. Let me tell you, your voters, your listeners may not understand this, but in California, it is so controlled by the left that you basically have to have the permission of kingmakers to advance to the next level. And she's been the beneficiary of that system throughout. I mean, there was a question when Gavin was running for governor, whether she was going to run for governor against him, and the kingmaker decided it was Gavin's turn to do that, and Kamala got a different prize. And so that's literally how things are done here. So that means no competition, no real, sharp elbows. The path has always been cleared for her, and that's what's happening now. Yes. And it's our job to make sure that's not what happens at the end of the day on Election Day.
And what that means is, in a world coming up with Democrat machine politics, you never really have to be that talented at actually speaking to voters or even listening to them. All you have to do is just impress the right people, and you move along.
Quite the contrary. The single-party system here in California has led to increasingly buffoonish, incompetent people getting elected to office. The unions control California, the teachers union, the SEIU, the workers, the state workers, and the job of elected official here is becoming increasingly mediocre, and it's very frustrating for those of us who live here. I hope that we have finally hit rock bottom here and we start to bounce back as a state. But imagine if the product of this terrible hackneyed system becomes the president. That means that everyone in the United States can look forward to our California bottom of the barrel politics becoming the national norm. America cannot afford that.
No, not at all. All right, Harmeet Dhillon, thank you as always, founder of the Dhillon Law Group and an attorney for President Trump and the Trump campaign. Always nice to chat with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's the great Harmeet Dhillon. As far as Kamala and everything about her, she's pretty wild. Here's the Trump War Room has put together a package of Kamala Harris being a complete disaster while she was border czar. I don't know how long that lasted. Do we have any time frames for this? Is this like a 10 and 4 thing? Like with Biden, it was a short window of time where she was the border czar and then spent the rest of the administration running away from that job. Here's the Trump War Room.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
What an embarrassment. I haven't been to Europe? Are you kidding me? What does that have to do with anything?
The vice president being ripped for this tone-deaf reaction to the growing crisis.
Do you plan to visit the border?
Not today.
He's a very unserious person about an incredibly serious crisis.
The White House has no idea what borders are. Kamala Harris is doing about the migrant surge.
When are you going to the border, Vice President? The administration has asked. I'm not finished. I've said I'm going to the border.
Kamala Harris has been put in charge of trying to figure out the root causes, why all those people from Central America come here.
In 2017, she tweeted, "Say it loud, say it clear. Everyone is welcome here."
She was given this job. She doesn't take it seriously.
Overall, we are seeing progress.
Laken Riley, her accused killer, came to the U.S. illegally.
Is in the country illegally when he murdered that officer.
The illegal immigrant now accused of killing a mother and son while driving drunk.
An undocumented immigrant convicted of rape.
An 18-year-old illegal immigrant on a rape charge in Hicksville, Ohio.
Officials in Texas have seized more than 400 million doses of fentanyl.
Still no plans for Vice President Kamala Harris to go visit the border.
I've been to the border before. I will go again.
She hasn't been as vice president, though.
She's pandering to her open border base. That's what this administration does.
It is ridiculous. Obviously, it is embarrassing for America that this is our vice president.
Hell yeah. It's embarrassing. It's totally embarrassing. And now she's been rewarded. Now she's been given a promotion. Have you seen? Oh, I've got some audio to share with you. You're gonna love this. The panel that MSNBC did with voters, was that Wisconsin? These voters? Oh, they were asked about Kamala. It's the best ever. It's the best. I gotta say, we really have some great. We have a great country. We really do. I'll share that with you in just a moment. Wisconsin Trump voters. Wisconsin Trump voters. These are perfect. All women speaking to MSNBC this week, and they do not give Kamala Harris very high marks.
How do you perceive Vice President Harris compared to President Biden in terms of competency and experience?
I think she's worse. She doesn't even know what's going on at the border.
Right.
And that's what she was supposed to be doing and in charge of. I mean, as a school teacher, if I did not do what I was supposed to be doing, you better believe my job would be in jeopardy. Well, it isn't. Not only was her job not in jeopardy, she was just handed a promotion.
Is there anyone that Kamala Harris could appoint as her vice president that you would find reassuring, would make you consider voting for her?
No. Never consider voting for her. No.
I would do
RFK Jr. way before her.
Same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And she's not the first woman to run for the presidency, Hillary Clinton. I'm assuming no one voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it's not necessarily going to sway you to vote for a woman in office. When do you think America will have a female president?
When there's a competent one.
I don't get a good feel for her.
I think she's an idiot.
Right.
Mary, why do you think that she's not that bright?
Because she hasn't done anything in the time that she's had. We don't know anything about her as far as her 3 years so far in the White House. She's not real smart.
How many televisions were destroyed across the country? MSNBC viewers. When there's a competent one, what are you saying? Whipping the remote control at the television. Wearing a mask at home. Oh, God bless those women. God bless Wisconsin. Try the cheese curds. Pretty cool place. Good beer, too, actually. Coming up, Rob Law will be here. He's with the America First Policy Institute. As I mentioned, the media giving Kamala a glow up this week. The border? Oh, no, that was never in her portfolio. She's just been being awesome for 3.5 years. You ready for President Kamala? We'll discuss it all with Rob Law.